Getting high without alcohol, drugs, or cigarettes sounds impossible today. But our ancient ancestors had none of these. No alcohol, no tobacco, no chemistry. And yet, across continents that never made contact with each other, they regularly reached mental states modern scientists compare to a full psychedelic trip. No drop of alcohol, no leaflet, no pill swallowed. These weren't accidental experiences either. They were deliberate, repeatable rituals, practiced generation after generation, refined over thousands of years without a single textbook or teacher explaining why they worked. So how did ancient humans get high purely naturally? And is that same ability still sitting inside us, unused? Let's find out, because the answer involves dancing till collapse, starving on purpose, and pain most of us would run from. When we feel high, it's chemistry inside your own skull. The brain releases dopamine for pleasure, endorphins for pain relief and euphoria, serotonin for mood, and DMT, linked to intense hallucinations and dreamlike states. Drugs and alcohol just force these chemicals out artificially, but the body can produce the exact same chemicals naturally, and ancient humans found ways to trigger them without knowing a single word of neuroscience. They had no labs, but they had patterns: exhaustion, pain, extreme temperature, and group energy. Patterns that could hijack brain chemistry almost like a substance. And this wasn't one tribe's trick. It was independently reinvented across the world by cultures with zero contact with each other, which means this isn't coincidence. It's built into human biology itself. Researcher Rick Strassman, who ran the first modern clinical studies on DMT in the 1990s, found that the compound occurs naturally in trace amounts in the human body, raising the still debated question of whether extreme physical states could trigger the brain to release more of it on its own. In other words, every method covered in this video isn't some separate cultural quirk. Each one is simply a different door leading to the same internal chemical system. The oldest method: dance non-stop for hours. The San people of the Kalahari, one of the oldest hunter-gatherer traditions on Earth, still perform the trance dance. The tribe gathers around a fire. Women clap and sing in a hypnotic rhythm while men dance for hours, sometimes an entire night without stopping. After 3 to 4 hours of this, the heart rate stays elevated. Breathing turns rapid and shallow, and the body crosses a threshold of exhaustion it can't sustain through normal means. Right at that breaking point, the brain shuts down its usual filters, what anthropologists call an altered state of consciousness. Dancers report full body shaking, hallucinations, and a sensation of leaving their own body. Some feel themselves turning into animals. Others claim to communicate with dead ancestors. This isn't just folklore. EIG studies on these dancers show that prolonged rhythmic movement combined with exhaustion genuinely triggers endorphins and DMT-like compounds. A similar mechanism shows up thousands of miles away with the Sufi whirling dervishes of Turkey, who spin continuously for extended periods as a form of meditation. The repetitive, disorienting motion produces effects on the inner ear and brain strikingly similar to what the sand dancers experience: a loss of normal spatial awareness that pushes the mind into an altered state. There may even be an evolutionary reason this specific combination of exhaustion and rhythm works so well. The San are also known for persistence hunting, chasing an animal for hours across open land until it collapses from heat exhaustion. Some researchers believe the same physiological endurance that made humans effective persistence hunters is what also makes prolonged trance dancing possible in the first place. Dance past exhaustion, past pain, until the brain manufactures its own drug. The second method flips this: extreme stillness instead of movement, through deliberate starvation. Many Native American tribes practice the vision quest, a young person sent alone into the forest or mountains for days, without food, sometimes without water, to receive a spiritual vision guiding their life. Here's why it worked. After 48 to 72 hours without food, the body enters emergency mode. blood sugar drops, and the brain switches fuel from glucose to ketones. During this shift, the brain's logical thinking regions weaken, while regions responsible for imagination and emotion become far more active. The result? Vivid hallucinations, intense emotion, and what people describe as a spiritual awakening, confirmed by modern extreme fasting studies where colors turn more vivid, time distorts, and hallucinations occur. What we today call a starvation-induced mental health crisis was, in ancient societies, a sacred ritual, deliberately starving yourself to send your own brain on a trip. This wasn't unique to North America either. Hindu sadhus in India have long practiced extended fasting as part of spiritual discipline, sometimes going days with only water, reporting the same heightened awareness and altered perception. Australian Aboriginal walkabout traditions similarly combined long isolation with minimal food intake, using the resulting mental state to guide major life decisions. Modern research on fasting has also uncovered something these traditions never could have known about directly: a cellular process called autophagy, where starved cells begin breaking down and recycling their own damaged components. Some scientists now believe this cellular stress response may be directly linked to the altered mental states fasting produces, tying ancient ritual to a biological process only discovered in the last few decades. The most extreme method, pain. The sun dance ritual, practiced by plains tribes, involved hooks pierced through the skin, tied by rope to a central pole. Participants would pull against it for hours, sometimes until the skin tore. Here's the biology behind it. Intense, sustained pain floods the brain with endorphins, the body's natural painkillers, acting on the same receptors as morphine. Most people know a mild version of this, the runner's high. Ancient rituals pushed that exact mechanism to its absolute extreme. The reported result: overwhelming euphoria, a sense of detachment from the body, and deeply spiritual experiences. So pain wasn't punishment. It was a biological switch, one that, when pressed hard enough, sent the brain into a completely different state. Similar principles appear in Mandan tribe initiation ceremonies, where young men endured suspension by pierced skin as a rite of passage into adulthood. The pain itself treated as the doorway to a transformed state of mind, not merely a test of toughness. From an evolutionary standpoint, this endorphin flood likely didn't evolve for spiritual purposes at all. It probably evolved so injured or fighting humans could keep functioning despite serious harm. Ancient rituals essentially reverse-engineered a survival mechanism and repurposed it deliberately, on purpose, for an altered state of mind. The fourth method: deliberately staying awake for days. In many shamanic traditions, initiation required apprentices to stay awake 3 to 4 full days straight. After roughly 72 hours without sleep, the line between reality and dreams blurs. Micro-hallucinations begin. The brain starts slipping into micro-sleeps, eyes open, mind already dreaming. Modern sleep deprivation studies confirm this exactly. Participants report hallucinated voices, colors, even entire scenes that felt completely real. Ancient shamans used this state to claim they could meet spirits or see the future. What medicine today calls sleep deprivation psychosis, ancient traditions called enlightenment. Some Amazonian tribal initiations combine this same sleeplessness with prolonged isolation in the jungle, stacking sensory deprivation on top of exhaustion to intensify the effect even further. A fifth method, less talked about: deliberate cold exposure. Tibetan monks practice Tummo, inner fire meditation, sitting outdoors in freezing temperatures, sometimes wrapped in wet sheets, using controlled breathing to generate internal heat while reaching deep meditative states. Arctic indigenous groups used similar cold exposure rituals, using the shock of freezing conditions to trigger the same flood of adrenaline and endorphins. Same mechanism, different trigger. Dancing, starving, pain, or cold. The body responds to extreme stress the only way it biologically knows how: by releasing its own chemical cocktail. In lab tests, trained Tummo practitioners have been shown to raise their own skin temperature by several degrees through breathing alone, something previously thought to be entirely involuntary, controllable only by the body's automatic nervous system. Scientists refer to this general principle as hormesis, the idea that a controlled dose of stress, whether it's cold, hunger, or pain, can trigger a beneficial adaptive response in the body rather than simple damage. In small, ancient societies, this concept was never named, but it was clearly understood and deliberately applied. There's a sixth method, and it's the strangest one because it needs nothing except your own lungs: controlled, rapid breathing. Many shamanic traditions in South America and Siberia used fast, forceful breathing patterns during ceremonies, often combined with chanting, to intentionally alter consciousness without any plant or substance involved. In the 1960s, psychiatrist Stanislav Grof studied this scientifically after LSD was banned for research. He developed a technique called holotropic breathwork, fast, sustained breathing that lowers carbon dioxide levels in the blood, which in turn changes blood flow to the brain. Participants using this method alone, with zero substances, reported experiences nearly identical to a full psychedelic trip: vivid imagery, emotional breakthroughs, and a sense of expanded awareness. This means ancient cultures had, in effect, discovered a working technique for altering consciousness using nothing but breath control, centuries before any scientist put a name to how or why it worked. One factor made all of these more powerful: doing them as a group. None of these rituals were done alone. The tribe sang, drummed, or sat together. Rhythmic drumming and group chanting cause brainwave entrainment. When a group moves or listens to the same rhythm long enough, individual brainwaves start syncing with each other. When the whole tribe reached the altered state together, it created a collective high, far more intense than any solo experience. This is exactly why people at concerts and festivals report a strange, connected feeling today. Same ancient mechanism, new outfit. Brazilian candomblé ceremonies and West African drum circles both rely on this same principle: sustained, synchronized rhythm pulling an entire group into a shared trance state that no individual could reach through drumming or dancing alone. If the brain is this powerful on its own, why did we abandon these methods? Time and convenience. A trance dance takes hours. A fasting vision takes days. A drink or pill works in seconds. As the modern world chose speed over patience, we abandoned methods that gave the same experience, without the long-term damage of substances. Ironically, therapists are now circling back. Extreme fasting retreats, breathwork sessions, group drumming therapy. Modern versions of the same ancient formula. The rise of organized religion and settled agriculture also played a role. As societies grew larger and more structured, spontaneous tribal rituals were gradually replaced by fixed ceremonies and eventually by substances that could deliver a similar effect without requiring the entire community's participation. Alcohol fermentation, for instance, dates back roughly 9,000 years, meaning humans discovered a chemical shortcut to these same brain states fairly early on. Once that shortcut existed, the much harder, multi-day, community-wide rituals slowly became less necessary for an individual simply looking for a quick escape. Next time someone says it's impossible to get high without drugs, remember, our ancestors did it for thousands of years, through dance, hunger, pain, cold, and sleeplessness. Maybe the real question isn't how they did it. Maybe it's why we ever stopped using this power our own brains already have. Every method in this video, dance, hunger, pain, cold, sleeplessness, even breath, required nothing you couldn't already do with your own body. No dealer, no bottle, no lighter, just discomfort, patience, and a willingness to push past a threshold most of us never even approach. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. Which of these methods sounds the most extreme to you?